Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on the R Factor webinar. Today, we're going to talk about how to get from where you are to where you want to be. I'm Carla Pascoe, and I'm going to be guiding you through this journey for about an hour or so. And I'm really excited to share this information with you. These principles have worked for me and many successful people. So I know that there are things that you can learn from this and make your life even more fulfilling. So I appreciate you being here and taking the time out of your busy life to invest in yourself. So I'm going to share the slides with you. I'm going to take myself off the screen so that I'm not distracting and you're able to focus on just the slides. So we're going to get started. Okay, so a couple of questions I want to start with is, do you know anyone that has a perfect life? I know I don't, but I certainly know people that have what appears to be a fulfilled life in many aspects of their life, not just in their career or personally or financially, but they kind of have it for all aspects. So I'm assuming that because you're here, that is something that you would be interested in having too. And being here obviously is the first step in investing in yourself and your future, and what are some principles that you might learn that you can make those steps towards having a more fulfilled life yourself. So over the next hour, like I said, I'm going to go over some proven strategies that have worked for other people, that have had some very successful outcomes with it. A lot of these things I've incorporated in my life and continuing to try to master them as well. It's all a journey, and I'm just very passionate about helping other people achieve the same thing. I know that, life, obviously, it's very stressful. There's a lot going on for all of us. And it can really become very stagnant, and where you just really kind of just go through the motions day after day after day. And if you feel like you're doing that, then you're in the right place, because we're going to go through a process, and I'm going to give you 4 principles that you could incorporate and to start right away. Recently I've had some friends tell me that they don't even know what they want anymore, and they don't know how to dream. I was hosting a vision board workshop, and when they were invited to participate, that was the response I got from a couple of friends. And I really found that sad. And I want to help people kind of find that dream that they have, that they just don't allow themselves to really explore or do anything about. So for the presentation today, my promises to you is that, if you follow these principles, then you're going to be doing what wildly successful people have done already. So it's been proven to work for many successful people over and over. And then incorporating these principles will give you better outcomes. And even some of the principles, the first one especially that we're going to talk about, if you incorporate that immediately, you're going to see almost immediate results in how you have reactions and versus responses to events. And then those things that can kind of turn things around pretty immediate for you. And then if you incorporate these principles and they really become habits for you, then you're going to see long-lasting results for the life that you want. All right, I want to share with you why I'm doing this. And this is my family, my husband, Andrew, and my daughters, Emma and Keelan. And, they're my why. They're why I do anything that I do. And, talking about being stuck and stagnant, I recently found myself going through life and prioritizing really the wrong things. And I remember Andrew telling me, that he had never seen me disconnected from the family, and that I wasn't really present when I was there. And, it took me aback, and I had to think about it. And honestly, he was right. And I wasn't present, and I wasn't in the moment. I was, in the evening spending time with them, watching TV, but I was still trying to get through the 100 emails that I didn't get through during the day. But I didn't even realize it was happening. It just sort of happened. It crept up on me. And before I realized it, I was a bit disconnected. So now, being removed from that situation that really was honestly kind of stealing my joy, I decided to take a step back and make a commitment or recommit myself to make sure that my dreams for myself and for my family are never minimized or put at the bottom of the priority list again. And then I also committed to sharing this information and these principles with like minded individuals like you so that you can also get unstuck if you're feeling stuck. And if you're not feeling stuck, just how you can take your life to that next level. So, my why is really being more present in the moment. As I discussed, I had sort of gotten away from that. And then being able to achieve my goals, personal and professional. I'm going to share a little bit more about that because I was really mastering that, achieving professional goals, but I wasn't doing it so much on the personal level. And then being a role model for my girls so that they can see that you can set goals and big goals and how you can accomplish that and how you can take steps towards that every day. And I want to be that role model for them in that respect. And then all of that's going to help me have a more fulfilled life with my family. This picture was taken with a holiday trip that we took in Germany, Prague, and it was just the most magical trip and time that we had. And this picture actually was taken in Innsbruck. And, so it's a good reminder to me that we've had that time, that we've had more fulfilling experiences as a family. And I want to make sure that we get back to that and we don't lose sight of that. And then, as I mentioned too, for me, it's just important to share anything that I feel passionate about or that I feel can help others and to share that with you. So let's get going, and we're going to talk about the 4 steps. These seem really simple. There's nothing that's rocket science about this. Many of these things you may have heard, you may not have heard them outlined together. And these principles, are just 4 of many success principles that have been written about and proven over time. So with a 1-hour webinar, there's not enough time to really take a deep dive into anything. But what I want to do is give you very much an overview of these 4 steps. Now, if you had a chance to download or print, whatever your preference is, the workbook that should have come in your confirmation email, you'll have that to refer to. And we're going to talk about and refer to some of the exercises in there. If you don't have it handy, don't worry about it because you can reference that later, because some of the exercises are really meant for reflection and for you to do that on your own. But I will reference them and we will talk about some, and we're going to do a few things during the webinar. So the 4 steps, the first one is E plus R equals O. And that seems like a simple equation, and we're going to talk about how simple it can be, but it can take some practice to really master that. And then deciding what you want. As I mentioned, the friends of mine that really had not in a long time sat and thought about what they wanted, what their vision was for their life, what dreams they may have had. And so it sounds easy, but it can be very difficult for some people to really decide what they want. And then setting measurable goals. Again, I think this is something we all do really well professionally, but we may not do it for ourselves. And then taking action. You can do all of the first 3 steps, but if you don't take action, none of it's really going to matter. So this first step is the equation that we talked about, and it really is something that can change everything. E plus R equals O. So this can be the first step in creating a different future for what you want for your outcomes. It's so simple, but as I mentioned, it can really be difficult to kind of make it part of your practice. When I first learned this equation, I realized that I was often responding to life's events just as they came up, more in a reactionary way. We all have things happen. If you get a flat tire, you get frustrated. If your bank account is lower than you expected, it can really stress you out. If you're in bumper to bumper traffic and you know you're going to be late for that first meeting of the day, your first inclination is really to blame the traffic. And then when I heard this equation and the way that it was laid out, it was really when I learned to respond differently to things that come up in life. So here's the reality, life just happens. Events are going to happen, things that are going to be totally out of our control. And they can come about based on a situation, based on other people's emotions, timing, the economy, the weather. There's the whole list of things that can cause events to come about in our life, but they're all outside our control. And life is going to happen, but it's better to try to be prepared for it when you can. And if you can't, then to respond in a more positive way. But, honestly, when most people are faced with these situations, they get annoyed or stressed and they'll do anything to just get out of that situation or to make it go away. And that's reactionary. And unfortunately, when you act in a reactionary way, it's going to produce outcomes that you don't really want. So the only way to get a good outcome is to respond in a way that will bring about the outcome that you're looking for. Recently I mentioned that I do vision board workshops, and I was going to do one, was early on a Saturday morning, and I was loading my car and noticed I had a flat tire. And rather than really let that just wreck my day, I unfortunately had to wake my husband up so that he could take me. Didn't have time to change the tire. The event was not that far from my home. Everything worked out, and I had allowed myself plenty of time so that even that hiccup didn't, cause any problems. I was still there and plenty of time to get myself prepared, and more importantly, to be able to present the workshop in a way that was beneficial for the people that had set aside their time to come. And if I had allowed myself to be annoyed and change my mindset, it was just not going to serve them well. So that's just one, minor example of when things happen like that, how you can respond differently. So again, the first step in this life-changing formula I've been talking about is really about taking responsibility for how you respond to it, whether it's a mishap or a big catastrophe, but especially for how you respond to opportunities that come up. That's another thing. Every event that happens may not be a negative event, but you could be missing out on opportunities if you're not paying attention to those things as well. So it doesn't mean that you're going to take responsibility for whatever the event or the situation or even the catastrophe is. All you can really do is take 100% responsibility for your own response. And that's what's in your control. And that's the one leverage point that you have and that can change what you get out of life. If you can decide to be thoughtful and deliberate about how you respond to things, or you can be frustrated, angry, reactionary, and emotional. It's all your choice. And what's so terrific about this concept is that it puts the control in your hands. And I think that's a great way for it to be. So the next part of this E plus R equals O equation is that you have to give up the blaming and complaining about events. I think sometimes, I know I've been guilty of this, you can get a little bit addicted to the complaining about things because it makes you feel better in the moment, but it doesn't change your outcomes. So if a couple of examples, say your boss gives you extra work to do and what you consider to be an unrealistic deadline for getting it done. And then instead of saying anything to your boss, you go and complain to your coworker. And then if you get upset with your spouse for spending too much money, let's say at Costco, because that definitely happens sometimes in my household, and I complain to my best friend about it. That's not going to solve anything either. All of this is complaining to the wrong person, and it's really wasted energy. So if you speak to the right person instead of the wrong person, the right person can actually do something about it. They'll have the feedback, and they can choose whether they do something different. Now, you may not always get what you want out of those situations, but at least communicating your request and how you're feeling about the situation is the first step towards getting what you want. And really, it's just basic maturity and relationship management 101. So instead of spending our time blaming things outside of ourselves, the weather, our boss, the traffic, the economy, and even the president, We can take action in advance and be prepared. You can also devise ways that will increase your options should a disaster occur. Our family experienced, a horrible event. We had a house fire. It's actually been almost 8 years ago now. We lost everything. Everyone was safe, the two dogs, two kids, my husband, and I was at work. And when he called to let me know, and I remember even driving home, to get there, thinking to myself, I need to stay calm. I need to be calm for the rest of the family. I need to make sure that this doesn't cause any more stress to my children. They were 6 and 8 at the time. That's a really difficult age to lose kind of all your toys, everything that is your security. And so, really trying to make sure that I responded in the best way that I could to help my family through that situation. And I'm not saying it was easy, but because everyone was safe, there was really nothing that could be done. It had already happened. The actual fire was caused by a candle, and my husband had lit a candle, and then he was upstairs. The dogs alerted him, and that's how he knew that things had caught on fire. And I never blamed my husband for that. He even commented about that, like, wow, I can't believe you're not really blaming me. He was beating himself up about it, but it wasn't gonna help anything to blame anybody. We're far enough beyond it now. We actually, make jokes about it, believe it or not, about the house that he burned down. But at the time, and when it was really a stressful event for my family, you know, we tried to make sure that we kept it as stress-free as possible. And it was a rough time, I'm not going to lie, but I do believe because we tried to handle it in a very mature way and respond deliberately and thoughtfully, it really helped the outcome that we had with that. We had a huge um, community support, that helped us through that. So, it was all good, but in the end, but that's just one example of something even catastrophic and how this principle can really help you get through that. The last thing that I want to touch on related to the E plus R equals O are yellow alerts. And we're not going to go into a lot of detail here, but this is really, again, about taking responsibility and not becoming a victim in life, and kind of watching out for those things called yellow alerts, those little hints or clues that tell you that something is not going the way that you want it to, and it may not work out in your favor. Those little things that make you go, what's going on here? So those things can happen at work. It can happen when, your boss is kind of watching over your shoulder at everything you do and suddenly critiquing your work more than normal. It can be when you lose a client because maybe you've not paid as much attention to them and they've chosen someone else for the work that they need done. There are a lot of different ways that yellow alerts can show up, but the truth is we're almost always given clues before something happens. And so it's really about being a little more intuitive, being aware of those things, that come about when they do, so that you can respond to them. Sometimes it's easier to just ignore them because it's uncomfortable, you want to avoid confrontation. But truth is, if you don't really deal with that and respond to it, you're likely headed for an event. Now, these next two slides, I just want to share a couple of the exercises that are in the book. We're not going to spend the time on them, but I just wanted to review them and encourage you to do those when you have time. The first one is resolving a difficult or troubling situation. So, in a webinar format, it's really hard to kind of break up and do these exercises, but they are valuable, and I think it's worthwhile for you to do them on your own. And this is really about not letting things fester in your life. Is there some situation that is really bothering you and it's always kind of there in the back of your mind? And if it is, these are the things that can interfere with your happiness, steal your joy, and just really interrupt your ability to live life to the fullest. So I hope you'll take some time. This is exercise 1, and you'll find it in your workbook. And then the next one is, kind of a continuation from the yellow alerts. While you don't want to ignore those yellow alerts that happen and that come up. We all know that it's just easier sometimes to avoid those things. But at the same time, often you're pretending not to know something when you're ignoring those things. So if you're experiencing some negative outcomes in your life, you're ignoring facts, you're excusing your part of creating a problem, to help identify these actions and begin to take some corrective steps. This exercise will ask you to examine each area of your life in 7 areas to determine if there's a problem in any of these areas that you could be ignoring. It may be something you're ignoring, it could be something that you're contributing to, or it could be a situation that you've actually created. So you might be ignoring something that is to do with your health. It could be finances, it could be with your family, your career, relationships, whatever it may be. But this exercise number 2 is going to take you through those different aspects of your life so that you'll know if there's something that really needs some attention before something more serious or disastrous even could happen. All right, so that was step 1 of the 4 steps that we're going to go through, the E plus R equals O. And so now we're going to talk about deciding what you want. And this is the next, critical step to really having the life that you want. One of the amazing phenomena that you'll experience as you incorporate this formula in your daily life is those unexpected surprises that show up. It may be an unexpected phone call you get. It could even be a financial windfall. Those things that seem like little miracles or coincidences probably aren't. It could be even a new acquaintance that you meet that somehow is going to help you achieve your goal, and you may not even know it at the time. All these things that could be happening could be the universe rewarding you taking some new action and your attitudes by harnessing all the forces at your disposal. It could be that you've worked really hard and you've kind of grown in yourself to this point where you're finally ready to receive the benefits that have kind of been waiting in the wings for you. But most probably, as researchers now believe, it may be simply a matter of your subconscious mind focusing on and recognizing opportunities when they arrive. Whatever the explanation may be, the reality is that what you want also wants you. Your goals, your desires, and your needs are kind of waiting to gravitate towards you once you decide what you truly want. The main reason that people don't get what they want is that they haven't really decided, or they haven't really got it down into a goal that's clear and compelling enough with detail that the universe or higher powers can really help you achieve that, because it's just not clear enough. So I think that's, one of the things that we're going to talk about a little further on is really how do you make that clear? But, how can your mind know what to begin looking for on your behalf and lining those experiences up, seeing and hearing it, if you don't give specific, detailed goals to achieve? I don't know if you've heard this quote by Lewis Carroll, and if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So that's kind of what this is about. If you're just meandering through life, but you don't really have those goals that are going to be a specific destination, then anything will do, because you don't really have a specific, clear goal in mind. So there's a very powerful technique that can help you define what you want in vivid detail. And we're going to be talking about that more in just a moment. But before defining your ideal life that you want for yourself, just some words of caution. Just make sure that whatever you come up with is what you want, that it's not something that somebody wants for you, maybe your parents, maybe your spouse, maybe even your kids. It needs to be something that you want, that's truly important to you from the deepest place in your heart. And I just want to caution you, don't live someone else's dream. You want to live your dream. And while we're talking about dreams, I think it's important to dream big. When you're deciding what you want, my favorite quote from Jack Canfield is actually, dream big. The how will show up out of your commitment to the what. And so, as we discussed, maybe the universe is rewarding you for taking action and opportunities are lining up. Or perhaps you're just clearer about what you want. Name it and claim it. Everything is there waiting for us all, but we just have to be specific about what that is. And you want to describe these things very specifically, and then you're going to start to see little miracles that happen along the way. So I want to share with you how this happened for me a few years ago in my family. I was in a position, with a background in as a nurse and as a nursing leader for many years. I was in a position that I really was ready for a change. I felt like I had accomplished my goals there. I really was ready for my next challenge. And this was about a year after our house fire. And so I really wanted more for our family. That was a big struggle. During that year after the fire, we moved like 3 times, had to completely, start over and start from scratch. And so I wanted something more for all of us. So I began thinking about and had a goal to, to have a different position, a different role that was going to be an experience for my family as well. And so what I want to share with you is, the things that kind of transpired after that, things that I would not have planned or things that would not have normally happened the way that they did. There were 3 different jobs that I was pursuing very seriously, but all at different times. One position was in June. I started, and this all started with myself and my clinical nurse leaders. We did a poster presentation. I worked for an organization that, unless you were doing a presentation or a poster for a conference, there was no way you were going to get approved to go. So we did a poster presentation that was accepted and it was submitted. I asked my boss about going and taking my leaders. It was, nope, we can't afford that. You can go. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not going by myself. This was a team effort. This was them leading. I'm not going to go by myself. And so then I was told I could take one of them. And I'm like, well, how am I going to pick out of 2 of them? So I declined to go. I said, if we can't all 3 go, then I'm not going. And this is when I lived in Charleston and the conference was in Boston. So long story short, we were all 3 allowed to go, but we were going to have to pay our own food. And so I was trying to do things, as inexpensively as possible, and got an invitation for this luncheon. And at this luncheon, they were going to be talking about a hospital that was opening in Qatar in the Middle East. I didn't even know. I had never heard of Qatar. I'm just going to admit that. And I told my clinical nurse leaders, I'm going to sign us up for this lunch so we get a free lunch. And that was really my intention in doing that. But however, as hearing the presentation, and of course they were there recruiting people, I became very intrigued about it. And I thought, wow, this could really be an interesting experience to go and help open a brand new hospital from the ground up. So didn't think much about it. The position was a lateral position. They thought they would have some, higher level positions, but they didn't know yet. They were waiting to hire their chief nursing officer. So, I applied, and then I thought, no, I'm not really interested in that. And then a few months later in the fall, in October, I applied for a position as a consultant. And this was really what I thought was my dream position. That process, I felt like I was trying to get into the CIA. It was so involved and intense and lengthy, started in October and didn't end until February. And then in December, I was recruited to apply for a position that was as a chief nursing officer, a position I would not have normally been interested in or applied for a hospital in New York. And it was a small children's hospital there. And so all of these 3 different positions started at different times, vastly different opportunities, meant different things for my family. And I had just kept putting out there that I wanted, great experience professionally and then for my family. So I got called back by the hospital in Qatar, and, they really wanted me to join them in a lateral move and that there would be opportunities to move up. So within a week, I got basically the 3 job offers in February. So it was quite overwhelming, but everything just lined up, came together, and we actually, as a family, had a choice about what we were going to do. We chose to go to Qatar and have an experience that was going to be like no other, and for our family, and not just me professionally. So it was an experience that was so rewarding in so many ways. It was life-changing for all of us. It was a great cultural experience, especially for my girls who were 8 and 10 when we moved there. So, I'm just telling you this to say, don't be afraid to dream big, and you may not know how everything's going to line up, but when you know what you want and you're clear about wanting something, opportunities will show up, and you just have to be open to that. So something may start out as a dream, but set it as a goal, and then you start taking action, and then you're going to see significant changes and possibilities for yourself. So the next thing we're going to talk about, kind of along the same lines, but it's an exercise that you'll do. And this is something that you can partner with a friend to do. And you're going to ask each other these questions. So I would say take about 10 or 15 minutes per person, and have your friend or your partner, whoever's going to do it with you, ask you, what do you want? And you may name something, 1 or 2 things, and then they just keep asking you over and over, what do you want? What do you want? And eventually the real you begins to speak up. Initially, what you hear typically are more superficial things. It might be material things. It might be, I want a Tesla, or I want a big house on the ocean, and so on. But by the end of the 15 minutes, what you'll find is that I want to make a difference. I want to be significant in the field that I've chosen to work in. That you want something that you're doing to matter more than you. So those are really expressions of your heartfelt desires. But what you want to do is, as your friend is asking you these things, have them write it down so that you can refer back to that. It's a quick exercise, then trade places, and then do the same thing for your friend. And to really create a definitive list, you're going to turn to a page in your workbook that's called the Vision Experience. And it's really going to help you decide what you want to be, what you want to do, and what you want to have in 7 major areas of your life. And this one is exercise number 4 in your workbook, as you can see there. And this is a little bit more in depth. This is something that you're going to want to do in private. You want to do it when you're uninterrupted, when you're not distracted by things. You might want to put on some relaxing music and sit quietly in a place that's comfortable for you. Close your eyes and let your subconscious really help you create the images for your ideal life as you go through these 7 areas. So the 7 areas are career and professional life. That's 1. Finances. Number 3 is your relationships. Number 4 is your recreation, free time, hobbies, whatever those things you like to do for enjoyment. And then your body and physical health is the next area. And number 6 is your personal growth. And then number 7 is kind of your community. What do you do for your community to give back? And so just to give you just a feel for how this will work, we're going to actually take a couple minutes just to let you pause and visualize some things. And I'm going to lead you through this. So close your eyes, and you want to take some deep breaths. Breathe in and breathe out. And become very aware of your breathing, how the air feels cool when it goes in your nose, and when you breathe out through your mouth, how it's warm. And notice the rise and fall of your chest and your abdomen. And take a few breaths just to kind of get you a little bit relaxed. And then I want you to imagine, we're just going to do one thing. Imagine your ideal home environment. And where would this home be located? Would it be in the mountains? Would it be on the coast? Where would your ideal home be located? And if you're sitting and looking out the window, what would you see? Would you see cliffs? Would you see the ocean? Would you see the sand? Would you see lush forestry? What is it that you would see out the window of your ideal home? When you look around, what colors would you see in your home? What kind of decor would you have? Would it be modern? Would it be rustic? Would it be beach theme, cottage? What kind of art objects would you have? Would there be music playing in the background? And if so, what kind? How do you feel? What feelings do you have as you walk room to room and you look out at the view that you have? So just enjoy that image for a moment. And then come back slowly and open your eyes again. And so this is an example, a taste of the vision exercise that you can do later. And it's actually going to take you through each of those 7 areas that we mentioned. Don't rush it. You know, it might be something that you want to do after the webinar. You may want to wait and block some time so that you can actually do it. But take the time to do it, because what's going to happen as you start thinking of the ideal elements of each of these areas of your life, and you're seeing it and visualizing it, you know, let your mind wander and dream a bit. Because what you're going to have, once you have that ideal vision in each of these 7 areas, this is what's going to become the foundation for goals that you're going to create for yourself. And so that takes us then to step 3, and that's setting specific goals. I just want to recap a bit of what we've already gone over. So you've learned how to be thoughtful, thoughtfully respond to situations and events rather than being reactionary, and taking 100% responsibility for your actions without blaming and complaining. That was our first step. That was E plus R equals O. And then number 2, you just went through and defined kind of what you really would want in 7 areas of your life. And as you do that exercise more privately, you'll have a clearer vision of that. We were able to just do a sample of that. And then obviously, you know, this is just scratching the surface, what we're able to cover. But once you complete that, you're going to have a good vision for what you would want. So the good news is, now that you've done those things and you know what your wants and desires are and your vision, this is your foundation to create your goals. And don't do what I've done and I've been guilty of, and that's putting all my efforts towards writing, measuring, achieving goals for my employer and organizations that I worked for, and not putting that same equal effort towards other aspects of my life for my personal goals. I have in the past, and that's certainly how we got to Qatar as a family. But along the way, I let that slip to the side. So don't do that. Always come back to what are those 7 areas and what are your goals for all of those areas. Now, setting a goal, I think a lot of us are probably familiar with how to set a SMART goal, and you want to make sure that any goal that you write is measurable. And you want it to be so measurable that anybody that might come in and read that goal, they're going to know right away whether you've achieved it or not. I'm going to give you an example. So back to the house on the beach. So if you say, I want to own a house on the beach someday. Well, that's a nice dream and a desire, but it's not specific. And for you to really have a specific and measurable goal of having a house on the beach, you're going to need more information. And you're going to have to state it in a way so that you'll know exactly when you've achieved it and if you've gotten what you set out to get. So here's another way of looking at that. You can say, I will own a 4,000 square foot house on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, California by midnight on April 30th, 2025. Now, does that sound a little different than I want to own a house on the beach someday? That second version tells your brain exactly what you want to achieve and not just a vague, dreamy hope version of that. And then on April the 30th, 2025, someone else is going to know specifically if you achieve that goal because it's so measurable. So again, I think a lot of us know how to do business goals, but we don't always do the same thing for ourselves. I want to talk a little bit about a breakthrough goal. So while goal setting is important, to achieving our wants on our dream list, most of our goals we end up focusing on really improving our life just in the moment. And those are things like getting your house painted, cleaning out your garage, losing 20 pounds. Those are what they call minimum type goals. Those are things that you're probably going to do anyway. You're just giving yourself kind of a deadline. But what if instead you focused on a single goal that would really up-level everything that you do? Your career network, your income, your relationships, and therefore your family life. Wouldn't that be a goal worth pursuing with passion? Wouldn't that be something to focus on a little bit each day until you achieve it? So just think about that. Is it worth having that goal that would really up-level every aspect of your life? So a couple things. If you're an independent sales professional and you knew that you could get a substantial bonus commission or even a promotion if you landed a certain number of customers, wouldn't you work day and night to achieve that goal? Or what if you're a stay-at-home parent and your entire lifestyle and finances could change by earning an extra, say, $3,000 a month? Wouldn't you pursue every possible opportunity for side work or part-time business, anything you could to achieve that goal to make that difference for your family? So that's what I mean by a breakthrough goal, something that is going to change your life, bring about new opportunities, get you in front of the right people, and up-level every activity, relationship, and group that you're involved with. What might your single breakthrough goal be? Think about that. If you really sat down and wrote a breakthrough goal for yourself, what would it be? So there's an exercise in the book that will help you decide. Obviously, for the webinar, we're not able to go into that much detail, but whether you believe you can achieve it or not, think about what would be that one single change in your career, business, relationships that would boost you to the next level. If landing that promotion, changing that career, expanding your business, finding your soulmate, all of those things, going back to school, moving across country or moving across the world, retiring early, What are those goals? Take time later to think about it. This is really important, and what your breakthrough goal would be. And this is exercise 5 in your workbook. You'll see it there and be able to think through it and jot that down. And while you do that, be sure that you focus on what you would be doing, seeing, and feeling if you achieve this breakthrough goal. Another part that I want to cover that really helps you achieve your goals much more quickly and in record time sometimes is the use of affirmations. This is the last part of the goal setting that I want to cover with you tonight. And that's really, it's just a way to get your brain to focus on assembling the resources, the people, money, circumstances, whatever's needed to bring about your everyday goals, and especially even your breakthrough goal, is the use of affirmations. So affirmations are vividly detailed statements of you living, working, enjoying, experiencing life as if you've already achieved that goal. So affirmations help your brain focus on bringing your heartfelt desires to reality. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what an affirmation sounds like so that you know. So I'm happily depositing my first $100,000 royalty check as a best-selling author. So if you have a goal, a breakthrough goal of being an author, you want to use an affirmation like this because this is stated in a way that you've already achieved that. Another affirmation example is I'm joyfully receiving the company's top sales award. So how do affirmations work? Well, scientists, now know that your brain is really a goal-seeking organism. And if you give it a compelling, colorful, specific, crystal clear image of what you want, it'll work day and night to create those opportunities, contacts, resources, and circumstances to fulfill that vision that you have. In fact, the brain has a special function called reticular activating system, and it filters through millions of impressions, images, messages, and thoughts that you process throughout the day, and it passes to your conscious mind the specific information that's going to help you reach your goals. One example of how this works, have you ever thought of, a song and then suddenly everywhere you go, that song is playing? And this is your reticular activating system kind of pushing those things to your conscious mind. Now, once you have affirmations, reciting them frequently throughout the day actually is going to focus your brain on the goals that you want to achieve. Now, a lot of people do this differently. Some people write them on index cards. Some people put them as wallpaper on their smartphones. You might tape them to your bathroom mirror, just somewhere that you see them and you can recite them throughout the day. And you have to believe it when you say it. You can't just read it and be like, okay, yeah, I did my affirmation. But you have to feel it and pause after you read your affirmation to feel what that would feel like if you had experienced that and you had achieved that goal. For me, I try to keep my affirmations short enough. I have about 6 goals that I have affirmations for, and I try to keep them short enough that I have them memorized, but I'm a little weird that way that I can memorize things. And so I say them in my car when I'm driving and I'm in traffic. I turn the radio off and I just repeat them. So a lot of people do it different ways. Find what works for you, but the important thing is to give it a try. You have nothing to lose, and you may be very surprised at what you'll see happen when you start to visualize things as if they've already happened and if you've already achieved that goal. And anytime that you can add in colors, sounds, or emotions along with that is really going to help further that visualization process along. Repetition's the key. So again, start it and do it. I say my affirmations at least twice a day. Now, the workbook is going to help walk you through how to set up the most detailed and powerful and effective affirmations that you can. But using your goals from your previous exercises, writing the affirmations, all of this is really coming down to defining more specifically what you want to be, do, and have. And I just keep repeating that because it's so important to really know what that is. And so the affirmation exercise is exercise 6 in your book. Now, the last topic that we're going to talk about is taking action. Obviously, you can do all these other steps and knock those out of the park. But if you don't start taking action on your goals, then you're really not going to get anywhere. This obviously being the most important step is the last of the principles that we're going to cover for this webinar. And sometimes, especially if you allow yourself to dream big and you come up with that breakthrough goal, it's overwhelming. And so just allow yourself to, accept that. But then what we often do is say, oh, well, I've got to put that aside. I can't do that now. I need to wait till I have more time or more focus, or I get done with school, or I have more manpower, or, all of these things that have to be perfect. And what we do is then we become paralyzed with excuses and we become victims to perfectionism. Action is about forward momentum, and it is really not about the planets have to be aligned and everything has to be perfect. But to keep you from being overwhelmed once you have that big goal is chunk it down. Come up with what are some of those baby steps that you can do, just a bite at a time. What is it they say, how to eat an elephant, a bite at a time? Just be aware that sometimes preparing to move forward doesn't really count as action. So you may have to research some things and do some planning for a goal that you have, but make sure that all of that doesn't become an excuse and you're actually taking action that's going to help move you towards that goal. And again, chunking it down is going to help you. One thing that helps with that, and I can tell you for me personally, this has been a total game changer. I implemented this at the beginning of the year when I set my goals for this year, and I use it daily. And, it's something that really helps to keep me focused on my goals. Life is busy for all of us, and we have interruptions. We have things that come up that we just we can't seem to get back to the goals that we set because we allow interruptions to take over. So this is something that's helped me from being distracted from the goals that I set. Here's how it works. So if you had a target goal, say you wanted to save 3 to 6 months of living expenses and put aside an emergency fund that you don't have. So what steps could you take to pull that money together over the next 8 months? So I'm going to go over, here's 5 steps you could take. You could determine the amount of money per month that you would need. Number 2, you could identify what portion of your current savings you might be able to move over to this special emergency fund. Number 3, you might make a list of money sources that will give you extra income to put towards this. Maybe you could get overtime pay at work, or maybe there's a bonus that you could qualify for. Number 4, you could make a list of anything that you have that you're not using that you might be willing to part with and sell on eBay or OfferUp. And number 5, you might open a special account that is going to be just for this money. And as you sell things, it's going to go directly into there, or as you move things from your other savings, it goes there. So those are 5 things. So those are 5 steps that are going to be necessary to take to get to that end goal, even though that goal may take you a while to actually achieve. But these things you could probably do in one day, or if you set your mind to it, even a half a day. So making a list of what needs to be done, you're chunking it down and you're breaking it into those small steps that are doable. So that's how you practice the rule of 5. So the rule of 5 simply means that every day you do 5 specific things that's going to move you towards your goal. Now, for me, and the way that I learned this is planning your rule of 5 the night before. And that helps me start my day and no, I don't have to spend a few minutes at the beginning of the day trying to decide, okay, what am I going to do today? What's my rule of five? I do it at the end of the day so that I can put it out of my mind, and then the next day I just start. Now these are not your to-do list. I've got to go to the bank. I've got to go to the grocery store. I'm going to cook dinner. That's your to-do list. These are what are 5 actions that you can take during the day towards your goal achievement. And then that's really, the game plan and how you can begin to achieve the life of your dreams if you follow all of these principles. And really, even if it's a big goal, the rule of 5 works. It doesn't have to be a small goal, but it's about breaking it down and really keeping that goal in the forefront of your mind. So we've talked about 4 different steps today and 4 different principles that can help you be successful towards your goal achievement. What I want you to think about doing is to think about one thing that we've discussed that you could commit to and that you could really do. Think about what that is and make sure that you set a plan to start that, whether it's tonight and you're going to finish one of these exercises so that you know what it is you want to be, do, and have. Or you're going to write out an affirmation because you already have goals set. And then, or if there's some troubling situation that's in the back of your mind that you're really not dealing with, you're going to address that. So whatever it is that we've discussed, at least commit to doing one of these things.